In today's video, I'm sharing my experiences after 6 months of using the Stash Invest app, how my investments have performed within the app, and why I still think Stash is one of the best ways to get started investing if you're on a budget. Hey guys, welcome back. This is Erik of Investing Apps TV, and on this channel we talk investing apps, investing tutorials, and investing principles. So if you're new here today, definitely consider subscribing to catch future videos just like this one. Alright guys, so with that being said, we're going to hop into the review of the Stash Investing app after using it for my first 6 months. I'm going to be sharing my screen with you now so you can see exactly what I'm talking about. Alright guys, so here we are on the home screen of the Stash Invest app. As you can see on the home page, it'll show you your current portfolio value. It will also show you your total return and percentage return as well. So over my first 6 months, as you could see, I've made $26.40 in profits from just, the gain of the market, which is a 10.35% return, which is really not bad for my first 6 months using the app. So that's really not bad at all. So if you go over now to portfolio, this will show you the breakdown of your investments in the Stash app and how they have performed over, however long you've had the app. So as you can see, I'm currently invested in 16 ETFs. When I first made my original Stash app review, they had 33 ETFs available. They've since added 3 more over these last 6 months, so they now have 36. And I'll show you those extra 3 ones they've added in just a bit. But basically, here's the breakdown here. As you can see, the different ETFs I've invested in and what percentage of my total Stash portfolio they make up. So the first investment here you can see is Internet Titans. I've invested $30 into this ETF, and it makes up about 12% of my Stash portfolio. As you can see, it's returned me $3.70, which is a 12.32% return, which again is really not bad for 6 months. And if you click on that, you could see again the breakdown of this ETF. It holds some top tech internet companies like Amazon, Facebook, Netflix, PayPal, Google, eBay, things like that. So that's just one ETF of many that I've invested in the Stash portfolio so far. The next one, Defending America. As you can see, I also invested $30 in this portfolio, and it's also about 12% of my Stash portfolio. It's made a pretty similar return, about a 10.81% return. As you can see, it's currently worth $33.24. And again, that one has, if you go to overview, you could see that's invested into, really defense and military companies such as Boeing, Lockheed Martin. So that's, another investment option. Another one I invested in was American Innovators, and this one a little bit less. I invested about $20.51, about 8% of my Stash portfolio. And as you can see, it's currently returned 14.26% over these first 6 months. So that's even higher than the other 2 previous investment ETFs. And if you click on that, you could see that's made up of some companies such as Apple, Microsoft, Facebook, Google, Visa, Intel, things like that. After that, this is another little interesting ETF I invested in. About 8% of my Stash portfolio, as you could see, $20, currently worth $22.86. It's made a 14.29% return, so far that's my highest one. But let's look one below that one, Social Media Mania. I only invested $10 in this one, about 4% of my Stash portfolio, but over these first 6 months, it's already returned 19.88%, almost 20%. As you can see, it's almost worth $12 right now. And, that has companies such as Facebook, Twitter, and, social media companies. Blue chips. So I invested about $19.99 in this one, about 8% of my total Stash portfolio. It's currently worth just about $22. It's made just below a 10% return. Blue chips, those are your really solid S&P 500, solid blue chip companies. Apple, Microsoft, Facebook, Amazon, Johnson & Johnson, JP Morgan. These are some of the biggest companies in the United States. So that's what you get with blue chips. You get really solid, less volatile companies. Now, small but mighty, those are your small cap companies. Those are companies that are up and coming. So they're more volatile, but they potentially have more potential to make more profit. I've invested $20, and over these first 6 months, it's only had about an 8.3% return. So it's kind of lagging behind the other ETFs I've invested in, as you could see. But this again has up and coming companies. As you could see, Take-Two, they make the NBA, they make the video games, 2K. So these are up and coming companies right down here, for example. And underneath that, Roll with Buffett, I invested $10, only about 4% of my Stash portfolio, which it's made about 12, almost 13% return, so not bad over 6 months. this is actually the only individual stock on Stash. It's the Warren Buffett's Berkshire Hathaway's Class B stock. So everything else is an ETF, but this is the one stock, Warren Buffett's company. So I like to throw a little bit in there, but only 4%. This next one is Upandcoming. This one I've invested $25 into, and it's about 9% of my total Stash portfolio. As you could see, it's made only a 4.68% return over 6 months. This one's really lagging. This is actually emerging markets as you could see, in Latin America, Africa, Europe, Asia, and the Middle East. So, you'll find often that international markets are often lag behind the United States markets, but it's good to throw a little bit of your investments in there just to be diversified, because there may be times where the US markets pull back and, emerging markets across the globe thrive. So you want to have a little bit in there at least. Global Citizen, about 4% of my Stash portfolio. It's made about an 11.12% return. Wow, this investment exposes you to over 7,000 assets across 40 countries. So again, this is actually a global ETF. This includes the United States and international countries. It's a global ETF for sure. And the next one, this is actually my new lowest one. Money Machines. I believe this is banks. As you can see, I've invested 9% of my Stash portfolio into this, $25, and it's only made a 3.6% return over 6 months. If we go to overview, this is banks and the finance industry, such as JP Morgan, Wells Fargo, Bank of America, Citigroup, Goldman Sachs. So they're really lagging this year, as you can see. Well, at least over these last 6 months. Below that, the aggressive mix, about 4% of my Stash portfolio. As you can see, I invested $10, and it's made about a 7% return. So, it's kind of mid-range amongst the different ETFs I'm invested in. And this is an ETF that invests in several different ETFs. So it's an aggressive ETF. The underlying ETF is the iShares Core Growth Allocation ETF, as you can see. All right, the last couple ones I've invested in. Live Long and Prosper. This one I've invested, it looks like a very low amount, only 2% of my Stash portfolio, $5, currently worth $5.55. It's made about an 11% return over 6 months, not bad. As you can see, this focuses on the healthcare industry, the healthcare sector, pharmaceuticals, biotech, medical device companies such as Johnson & Johnson, Pfizer, Merck, United Healthcare, and companies like that. So beneath that, we have Delicious Dividends. This is companies that focus on dividends. I've invested 4% of my Stash portfolio into this, $10. It's only made about a 4.16% return. But again, dividend ETFs and stocks, you're more in those for the dividends they pay, and I'll show you those coming up. As you can see, this ETF, Delicious Dividends, focuses on companies that share more with their investors in the form of dividends. This ETF covers strong companies that consistently pay dividends. So there may not be so much growth in here, but they're going to give you a solid either monthly or quarterly dividend to your Stash account. Underneath that, the last two I have, only 2%. Pacific Powerhouse is 2% of my Stash portfolio, $5 I invested. It's made about a 4.6% return over the last 6 months. This is one of the newer ETFs on Stash. The last one in my Stash portfolio is Essential Europe. As you can see, I invested $5 into this as well, and it's made, about a 4.2% return. So that's really the last ETF of my Stash portfolio. So as you can see, each ETF has a different return over the last 6 months. On average, it looks like probably about a 10% return. As you could see on the homepage, 10.3% return on average. So again, that's really not bad over 6 months' time. But overall, I have to say, over my first 6 months, it's been pretty awesome using this app. As you can see, it's really passive investing. You don't have to manage your account much. It kind of you just invest into an ETF, and you don't have to worry about the day-to-day fluctuations because you're not investing in individual stocks. You're investing in more diversified ETFs, which again are exchange-traded funds, which are essentially just a basket of stocks. And lastly, I just want to mention how I still think after these first 6 months, I've tried several different investment apps. I use a couple different ones, and I talk about them on this channel, but I would say Stash is still the easiest one to get started investing, especially if you're on a budget, because Stash allows you to invest in $5 increments, which is very budget friendly to get started, get your feet wet with investing. So I still really love that aspect, and a lot of people ask me, which investment app do you like to use? I like to use all of them, but this is Stash's unique advantage, how they let you get started with low increments so you could slowly build up your investments over time. So hey, that pretty much sums up today's review of my first 6 months using the Stash investing app. If you found this video helpful, definitely consider subscribing to catch more investing app reviews, investing tutorials, and investing principles. Likewise, if you'd like to see some of my other Stash Invest tutorial app videos, feel free to check out my playlist right over here. Lastly, if you have any questions about the Stash investing app, feel free to leave your questions down below in the comments and I'll be happy to answer them for you. Thanks again for tuning in, guys, and I'll see you guys in the next video.